Please, can we take our seats? We'd like to begin. Let me welcome the two candidates to come to the podium. Nice to see the friendly clap, which is the spirit of tonight.
Yes, yes.
And I'm going to repeat myself. When I started out in media, I tell you there were no women.
I know.
And now they are way up at the top, and I am very, very, very proud.
Yeah.
If for no other reason. So I'd like to welcome you both. Zubeida Kananu, Senior News Anchor for KTN, also the incumbent president. Yvonne Okwara, Senior News Anchor and Business Editor for Citizen TV. Both women need no introduction to Kenyans, but for the purposes of the elections, we really do want to get to know you a little bit better. I'm going to invite you, let me start with Yvonne tonight. Before I do that, let me just lay the ground rules for how we're going to operate. We're going to run for the next 1.5 hours, which gives each candidate roughly 45 minutes, inclusive of questions. So that boils down to about 2 to 3 minutes per question. Keep your answers within that time frame. And we're going to be a bit strict because unlike the previous conversation where there was no opposition, we want to give you each a fair amount of time with the questions. I will start by asking you to introduce yourself as fully as possible. Tell us whatever you want us to know about your career in journalism, your contribution to the sector, and personal stuff if you feel like, whichever way you want to go. This is the time when people get to know you, what you stand for, how you think. Yvonne, I'll start with you.
My name is Yvonne Okwara. I have worked in the media for 19 years. But I think before I get into an introduction of myself, I want to begin with...
Is it on? Yeah, that's better. I was saying before I begin with an introduction of myself and my journey, I would like to first of all just recognize the circumstances under which we're having this debate today. Some events that took place yesterday, last night, and of course the events of today. Some very sad events that paint to the situation in the country. And there are journalists who were attacked, and make no mistake, it was an attack, it was a direct one. And tonight, before I even begin, I would like to stand with those journalists, Marianne Nyambura and Evans Asiba from Citizen TV, Purity Kinuthia from Nation Media Group, Peter Kimani, Kennedy Gashui from KTN, Robert Minor, who's from Inoro TV and Radio, who were doing their work in the line of duty last night at Kirobon High School, Rongai, Nakuru County. That attack is very emblematic of where we are now and where we have been over the last couple of years. And it's a dark time in a dark space when we see governments, not just here, but around the world, seeking to clamp down on media freedoms and the rights and freedoms of citizens in general. And it reminds us of some very difficult moments that we saw last year. Eric Isinta, who is a journalist, almost lost his sight. And it's ironic that in Nakuru County, where we saw Catherine Kariuki, who was shot 3 times covering the protest last year. So that tells you where we are now and the very important role that we play as journalists, as editors, and as the Guild. And so tonight, let's just reflect on what that means, and indeed the role of the Guild. And while we speak about the role of the Guild, I would like to congratulate all who have come before us, all who have led the Guild all this time, starting with the incumbent president, Zubeida Kananu, who together with the team in the council have done a great job. And she and all of us stand on the shoulders of many who have come before, many who have led us in this journey towards building the guild. From a time when it wasn't even registered as a guild to having it registered, and from what we've heard even from the soon-to-be vice president elect about reviving that. And so we stand on the shoulders of an organization that has been led and that has made great strides. And so for that, congratulations and thank you for the work. It's been amazing. I have worked for 19 years in the media. 19, if I talk about my adulthood. But I really did start, no, it wasn't child labor, by the way. But I started out at the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, I think as most of the journalists in this country have. And that was where I really laid the foundation and just learning the craft and being given the chance to explore and nurture that talent at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation when I was 7, for about 7 years or so. And since then, I went back to school, obviously, finished that, came back into the media, and have worked across various media houses, starting off at a pioneer radio station that was Hot 96. And I have made some movements and strides, also starting out with QFM. And later QTV, again, pioneering Kiswahili television in the country. And from Nation Media Group, I worked at the Standard Media Group. We were colleagues for 5.5 years, and I'm proud of the work that we did in pioneering the successful 24-hour news channel. She will remember it was blood, sweat, and tears, and many a time we put what we thought was our careers on the line for starting something that had been tried before in the country and hadn't been fairly successful, but we made some great strides with the 24-hour news channel, not just here, but across the 12 countries we broadcast in the continent. And now I'm at Citizen Television and doing quite a few things of which I am proud. What drives me as a journalist? It is the role that we play as the voice of the people. It is the role that we play as the voice for democracy in this country. Journalism is the only profession in this country that is in the Constitution by name, not any other profession. So that tells us about the importance of the work that we do. And I'm proud of my record as a journalist who has held power to account, that has asked the questions that need to be asked, that holding those duty bearers to account, to question. I am proud of the work in terms of pioneering an explainer on television, which was important in terms of helping people understand where we are in the news and what it means and making it useful to them. I am really driven, one last sentence, sorry, I am really driven by just ensuring that we are the interface between the public and the duty bearers.
Thank you, Yvonne. Sorry, we gave you like a lot of time. My timekeeper.
Oh, was it more than 2 minutes?
I'm
like
sorry.
10. Oh, I'm sorry.
So we give you the same. To keep it even, we're
Yeah,
gonna,
absolutely.
we're gonna give you the same amount of time.
Thank you
to
very
speak
much.
about you.
Thank you. Indeed, as Yvonne mentioned, it's a tough day for us as journalists. It's been a long day, but I believe we'll get into that in a moment. But our colleagues out there should know that we stand with them. I, as Zubeida, stand with them. I have stood by them since I became not just the president, but also as the vice president of Kenya Editors Guild. I've always championed for the welfare of journalists in this country, but we'll get into that in a moment. Let me introduce myself. My name is Zubeida Kananu. I'm a broadcast journalist with 18 years experience. I'm the current president of Kenya Editors Guild. I joined Kenya Editors Guild in 2018. I remember that day my friend Nabiswa walked into the newsroom and told me, Zubeida, have you heard about Kenya Editors Guild? And I was like, no, what is Kenya Editors Guild and what do they do? And he held my hand and took me to the offices. And the other day I was looking through, sifting through my stuff, I saw a receipt, my first payment of 5,000 shillings when I joined the guild. And I can tell myself that I'm a daredevil, because 1 year later, in 2019, I vied for the position of vice president of Kenya Editors Guild. Although I did not succeed, I did not give up. I served in different committees at Kenya Editors Guild. My first committee was the finance committee. After that, I served in strategy committee, and I was tasked to work on the welfare of the guild and come up with a policy around the welfare of journalists. And after that, in 2021, during the 2021 elections, I vied again for the position of Vice President of Kenya Editors Guild, and I succeeded. And I'm happy to see Churchill here because he was my mentor. He held my hand, and I worked with him as the Vice President of Kenya Editors Guild. And when he exited in 2023, I vied for the position of President and became the first female President of Kenya Editors Guild. And I thank my colleagues for holding my hand and supporting me throughout the journey. But my career in journalism didn't start at Standard Group. Looking back, while in primary school, Kaga Primary in Meru, I was the chairperson of Journalism Club. That's where my journey began. And after primary school, I joined Riri Girls in Meru, and I was the chairperson of Journalism Club and Entertainment. And while at high school, I used to write and read news every Friday. And my teacher supported me and held my hand. He would allow me to go out, engage people at the market in Roire, in Meru, gather news, and every Friday I would read news. And something that touches on what Standard Group and Nation Media are doing that made me who I am today, the distribution of newspapers in schools. I remember my teacher would invite me to the staff room, sit with me, and help me translate stories from the newspaper in Swahili, and I would read during assembly every day. So it tells you that that program, if well-driven, can impact on many people. And I'm happy that we're having this conversation at an institution, academic institution, because my teacher played a huge role in making me what I am today. And I'm happy that Kenya Editors Guild is partnering with academia to develop curriculum and train our journalists to become who they would want to be. And it has changed me, it has transformed me to become who I am today. And what drives me? Passion for my job. I love my job. I tell people, if I was to go into another world, I would still be a journalist. If you cut me right now, my blood is full of journalism. Passion for what I do. I believe I have a big heart, and that's why welfare of journalists is, and not just a journalist, everybody. You know, I don't like, it keeps me awake to see people struggling. It keeps me awake to see people suffering, you know, and going through the kind of harassment we are going through as journalists. And I'm sure we will get into that, the welfare of journalists during this conversation. But for me, yesterday we had a conversation here during the meeting with the Chinese, discussing how we tell stories as journalists on China-Africa relations. And something that I picked up from that conversation is how, when given a position of leadership, you treat or you use that position. And looking back, since I joined KEG, or since I got into leadership, I've treated KEG the same way I treat my children. I'm a mother of two, and I've given my all to journalism. I've given my all to KEG. I've given my all to journalists, and I'll continue doing the same if given the position to serve again as the president of Kenya Editors Guild. So for me, passion for my work, integrity, transparency, accountability, that's what drives me, and the welfare of journalists. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubeda. I'm going to now alternate, and we start with you this time. Just give us, in 2 minutes or less, your overview of the state of the media today, the key challenges facing it, and what needs to be done. And the same question will be posed to you, Yvonne.
One thing that is affecting media today is media sustainability. That has become a major challenge. I work at a company where we've worked for the last 3 years without pay, most part of it. You go to work every day and you don't know when the next salary will come. Yvonne mentioned earlier, I read the first Swahili bulletin on KTN News. Yvonne read the first English bulletin when we launched KTN News in 2015. And seeing KTN News go just like that, is a pain I carry to date, because we've worked so hard to bring media to where it is. But because of the challenges we face financially, Standard Group closed in 1 month 4 channels: KTN News, KTN Burudani, Farmers TV, and Radio Vibes. And we lost more than 400 people. When you look at it, the first thing we are told, it's because we cannot sustain newsrooms right now. And that's why, as the president of Kenya Editors Guild, through the Kenya Media Sector Working Group, we've been advocating, yes, for the payment of pending bills, but also the establishment of this Media Sustainability Fund. And it's a push that we'll continue advancing in the engagements that we'll be having. And I'm happy to report here, and it gives me great joy, because last year we went to the streets advocating for the safety and security of journalists, but also payment of pending bills. But I'm happy to report that the government has been paying the pending bills, and the company that I work for is one of the companies that have benefited from that, because I'll give an example of December and January, where Standard Group was paid about 183 million that was used to pay salaries, arrears, part of it. Even those that were exited during the retrenchment got some percentage of it. Standard Group was owed up to about 1 billion, but right now we, as Standard Group, are owed by the government about 400 million. So it's something that media sustainability is one of the major challenges that we face, and also threats to media and editorial independence from the government. That is one other thing that we need to collaborate on as journalists to fight back before they succeed in dividing us.
Okay, I need a
Sorry.
I'll use
thank
my
you.
glass
Okay.
next time.
All
Okay,
right.
Yvonne, the same
Yeah,
question.
thank you. I agree that the issues facing the media, for me, I see about 3 or 4. One is media sustainability. The other one is the threats to media independence. And then the third one is public trust, a waning public trust from members of the public. And then finally, the fourth would be the new frontier and the new challenges that we are faced with, emerging technologies, AI, and a future that is threatened by some of these emerging technologies. Regarding media sustainability, yes, there has been a great push for that. I'm aware, in fact, as well, and I've been following this very keenly with the International Fund for Public Interest Media. That's some of the work that has been done by the incumbent and the team, the research that is being provided by Reuters Foundation. But one of the issues that, of course, the big elephant in the room would be how to fund this media sustainability fund. Where do the solutions lie? Do we continue to depend on, government advertising? And it is great that the money that is owed to media houses by government is now starting to come out. But it is very important that we now start to seek other avenues of doing so. Can we think about, because issues of public trust funds and philanthropic funds, we know that those are also drying up, and we're aware of the global economic situation. And therefore, where we seek funds from and how we do that is one of the important things that we need to start thinking about. And maybe one of the things that I would vouch for would be to do what we have seen in other jurisdictions, New Zealand and Australia, for instance, that have published legislation to make sure that the big tech who are taking content, making money out of it, are able to do that. With respect to independence of the media, is my time up or? Okay, I can rush it. Okay. With respect to independence, we're in a state where there is clampdown, not just in the country, but around the world. We see that as a big issue. I intend, if given the mandate, to ensure that Kenya Editors Guild continues to be the moral compass, not just of the industry, but of the nation. In terms of public trust, we are in a post-truth era. Misinformation, disinformation, how do we stamp our truth? How do you do that when truth itself is something that is in trust? I have plans, and maybe we can talk about that as to how to foster public trust.
The next question actually is about trust, the waning trust, and what do you think needs to be done to improve the overall quality and credibility of journalism and to distinguish it from other information?
Okay. I think it should be very clear to us who the Editors Guild is, what the Editors Guild is, and who we are not and what we are not. I think that is important for us to continue to establish every single day, because those threats to the organization, the institution, come from everywhere, because there's always interest in influencing such an influential body like ours. Us being a moral compass is something that we really need to continue to establish and to continue to enforce. We must be seen, not just in word, but in deed, to be standing with the people and standing against oppression and the forms of those. And one of those things I think we need to do is, beyond making statements against attacks against our journalists, I would propose one, a Protection of Journalists Act, in reference to, you know, what we have all acknowledged has happened here, because we talk and we say a lot. When I put out a tweet yesterday in solidarity with our colleagues, many asked, okay, so you're talking, so then what? But do we have legislation that, one, chooses to criminalize attacks and harassment, two, requires swift investigations into crimes, and also seeks to provide special legal protection for journalists out in the field, particularly during issues such as protests, when they're doing investigations, and also for coverage of whistleblowers. The other thing that I think we need to do is enable members of the public to understand that the work that we do interface with the public. For instance, do they understand how journalism works, how stories are verified? And some of these things help to increase trust in public journalism. But I will say this, that anytime we are seen to be not pushing for media freedoms, or not drawing the line and the boundary very clearly between journalists and the government, then we stand the risk of losing public trust. And when we lose public trust, then what are we doing as journalists?
Thank you. The same question, Zubeida. Trust, how do we
Bring back public
build
trust.
back and maintain it?
Yeah, through constructive journalism, telling positive stories, stories that inspire. You know, I remember when we had Gito Pevo and such productions, everybody would rush home to watch. How do we tell stories that appeal to the people, stories that transform them, stories that give them hope, stories that change their lives and who they are? So constructive journalism is one. Accuracy. I'm happy that most newsrooms in the country right now have invested in fact-checking desks. I know we are a bit strained. If we were to strengthen those desks, I'm sure the output will bring back our audiences, who most of them have shifted and went to social media. If we came up with stories that will keep them glued to our screens, accurate stories, verified stories, because in as much as most of them have gone to social media, they will always come back to TV or a legacy media to see what is being told, how these stories are being packaged. So verifying the information, strengthening our fact-checking desks, strengthening investigative journalism so that we keep holding those in power to account. And that is one thing that appeals to people. Everybody right now is talking about the Standard newspaper and the headlines, you know, because they feel that this is the boldness that we've always been looking for. These are the kind of stories that we've always wanted the legacy media to keep telling, you know, the stories that appeal to the people, listening to the ground. What do people want? What conversation do people want to hear or to have with media? And also ensuring that we remember at the end of the day who we are serving. Because sometimes as media, we've been accused of prioritizing commercial interest versus serving the people. So the minute that we create that balance and remember that every day who we are meant to serve is the public, I'm sure we are going to win back the public trust. So it's improving on our productions and ensuring that the stories that we tell are the stories that interest the public.
Okay. To you, Zubeida, let's switch a little bit and look at the media framework. What legal or structural changes do you think are necessary to safeguard press freedom in the country, if any? What changes do we need to make?
We have very many laws in the country that muzzle press freedom. And one of them is the Kicker Act that we need to review. And there are about 21 laws that we've been looking into. And I'm happy because I got an opportunity last year to sit in the task force that was formed by the Ministry of ICT and DE, where we were looking at the gaps in our laws to see where we need to strengthen, where the gaps are, what we need to fill. And we identified those gaps and presented a report to the Ministry of ICT, which we hope will be implemented soon. So one of them was to review the existing laws that muzzle press freedom, like where a journalist tells a story and you go to them directly and want to punish them for what they've done, even without listening to them, without giving them an opportunity, And also one other law that we identified that needs amendment is the KBC Act, which has been in existence since the 80s. And, we are now in the digital era, so we need to amend the KBC Act as well, so that we keep building our national broadcaster. And also the laws around emerging technology. As a country, we don't have laws that govern how we use emerging technologies and AI. So those are some of the areas that we need to strengthen on the legal front so that we keep protecting our space as journalists.
Thank you. Yvonne.
Yes. The media in Kenya is heavily regulated. There's quite a few bodies that we have, from KFCB to the Communications Authority to the Media Council, and several repressive laws that we have. And to just take a look at a lot of work that's been done by the Kenya Media Sector Working Group, some of the issues that they have raised in terms of reviewing the Media Council Act to ensure that, this is the one body that we have regulating the work of the media. One of the other things I think that we need to do, reviewing these acts, and that is the low-hanging fruit. And I think we need to push and drive a little bit more and drive a little bit faster. Work has been done, and that's great. Now, what we need to do going forward is consolidate that. One of the things we talk about in a newsroom is a follow-up story. And if we're being honest, we haven't perhaps done the follow-through and the follow-up that we need to do in terms of reviewing these acts, reviewing the MCK Act. When it comes to, the Freedom of Information Act, to what extent are we getting benefit from this? We know of the challenges with respect to getting information from the various agencies that we have. Where are we in terms of ensuring that we get this in a timely fashion? And so those are some of the areas that I think we need to take a look at with respect to regulation. I'd like to speak about KBC for a moment, if you give me a chance. KBC is great public broadcaster. When we talk about laws surrounding that, can we talk about the KBC Charter? One of the things in terms of making sure that they are better funded. Before there used to be, when we grew up, there used to be a license for TV. You remember, there was a license for every television set or radio set that you bought. I would be happy to see that KBC Charter brought back in some form or another, because that is what is done in South Africa with SABC. That is what is done that enables the BBC to do their work. And these are things that we need to do to strengthen the role of the public service broadcaster that plays an important role. So there's several roles, legal aspects that we need to take a look at. And my belief is that what we need to do with the ones that we can review, let's do that.
Okay. Let's pivot back to the issue of trust again. When we were listening to the vice presidential candidate, he spoke a bit about the influences on media, the pressures on media. What, in your view, what steps must be taken to protect and strengthen editorial independence in Kenya?
It is a big issue, particularly now that we see the attempts at, muzzling media. But I think this is an issue about visionary leadership and deciding the direction in which we take it. The laws are there, but particularly now, issues such as the commercial versus the editorial, that is where we get it. I'd like to speak about the GAA for a moment. We know that that is essentially a tool of oppression that has been instituted by the government to ensure that this is what you are going to say, this is what you're not going to say, and we will withhold these funds. And, we know when this was instituted, around 2013, the courts have declared it illegal. What have we done with respect to ensuring that those court rules are upheld? Where is the Media Owners Association with this, with respect to this? So these are some of the questions that I think we need to take a look at in terms of the line between commercial and editorial. And that line, by the way, many editors who are watching here and wherever they are know that editors are now facing the commercial question. They're not only concerned with the content, just as, you know, from a pure point of view, but you're also thinking about, the issues of where do we make money and how do we fund the journalism that we're doing. One of the other things that I think we've talked about here is that media fund. And I would like the opportunity to carry from where the Kenya Sector Working Group and others have done and seek ways and partners to be able to fund this, because once we're able to fund that, media sustainability is also a part of ensuring editorial independence. The other thing would be to lead the Kenya Editors Guild in the direction that says we are speaking truth to power. We are the ones who are holding ourselves to better standards. Issues like peer review, we don't have peer review, which is rather interesting. For those of you who are on the WhatsApp group, we do know that there are some topics that are don't touch. We should be in a space where we talk about the standard headlines. How are those framed? What are they doing for us? We can talk about an interview that was had on Citizen Television. These are some of the things that once we start to do in terms of instituting our own independence, where we are regulating ourselves, and that is visible, then that then rebuffs everybody else who would like to come in and say, well, you're not regulating yourselves enough.
Okay, please, let's stick to the time. Otherwise, we're going to overrun. Zubeida, in terms of trust, rebuilding trust again, and editorial independence, what needs to be done to ensure that it holds in the media in Kenya?
Mm-hmm. So there's projects that we did with Reuters Foundation on the policies that exist in our newsrooms. And what we noted is that currently, or in most of our newsrooms, we act as per unwritten policies more than written policies. So one thing that I would appeal to our newsrooms is to come up with policies that govern or guide us in our day-to-day, so that we are able to draw that balance. And I'll give an example. There's a day, it was on, we're marking World Water Day, on a day that we had, or the country experienced mandamano from the opposition. And someone came to the newsroom and said, no, you cannot air that mandamano because that 1 hour has been paid for World Water Day. And what happens in the newsrooms? You're told prioritize commercial over everything else because we have to pay bills. So if we have put in place policies in our newsrooms that govern and draw that line so that everybody knows where not to cross the path, so that we prioritize that person that is watching. Because I remember in an engagement that we had last year, somebody said, you have a 20-minute bulletin and 10 minutes of it is commercial. So are you serving me as an audience? Yes, you're making money, but if you're not giving me my time, I'll go where I'll get all the time that I need. So basically what I'm speaking about is having that balance on commercial. Another question that keeps coming up is on our leadership. Whether they control the kind of content that we air. We need to come out and explain to the public how media works, because most of the time they assume that because, I'll use this as an example, maybe KTN is owned by Gideon, or Masharia at Royal Media wakes up in the morning and tells you, no, air this and don't air this. You know, it's public perception. Many people think that our leadership dictates what we air on a day-to-day. So we need to come out and tell them that we make our own editorial decisions without influence from anyone. Another issue is that many feel that we are influenced by politicians, especially when somebody comes out and says that this media house has taken this political position or this political alignment. That has really injured our public trust. So this is something that we have to look at even as we go to the next election, so that we don't lose our audiences.
Thank you. I'm going to switch a bit and take a couple of audience questions. A question from George Nyabuga. With all the technological, financial, and governance dynamics that pertain in the media, where do you see the media in the next 2 years? I believe it is your turn to start first.
We have to move fast. You know, I got an opportunity for the last year or so to go to China twice, and we visited their newsrooms, and they've 101% embraced new technology, especially the use of AI. But I feel like as Africa and Kenya, we are still finding our way. We haven't settled yet. We haven't found our grounding, especially on the use of AI and emerging technology. And that's why somebody last year during our convention asked, if somebody publishes a story using ChatGPT, will you punish them or will you go ahead and publish that story and give them praise? So where are we, even as newsrooms, in the use of emerging tech in storytelling? Have we embraced it? Have we trained our people? As Kenya Editors Guild, we've been training, and the last two conventions, we focused purely on emerging technologies, how we use them to generate revenue for our newsrooms, how do we use them for fact checking? So we need to adapt and move fast, because in Africa, for example, I would think maybe South Africa and Zimbabwe have embraced AI to some extent, because during the last convention, we had a speaker from Zimbabwe who spoke about their new digital employee called Alice. And last year we were told they have another digital employee. But as Kenya, where are we? We are still, yes, we have AI policy, which hasn't been implemented yet. We are still looking at it to figure out where we fit in and so on. So we really need to wake up and move, because AI is no longer new. We are talking about AI today. Tomorrow we might wake up and find another monster in our space. So how do we use the emerging technologies and look at them as an opportunity more than a threat? Because sometimes I feel like journalists look at AI and emerging tech as a threat, technology that has come to take up our jobs. But how do we tap into it to strengthen our newsrooms?
Thank you. Yvonne, the same question with the technological, financial, and governance dynamics. Where do you see the media in the next 2 years?
It's uncharted territory in many ways. Do we have the answers? Do we know what that's going to look like? On most days, I think it seems like we're living day by day and grappling with some of these challenges that come our way, be it technology, be it financial. AI, like we've said, is a huge question around ethics in journalism. So to what extent are we using this? And to what extent do we then determine that this is something that is the true work of a journalist? With issues like information, misinformation, and disinformation, where are we? The thing about it for me, I think, from a leadership standpoint, would be to continue to speak to various people, professionals in other professional organizations and professional societies, and to hear from members. Yes, AI is here with us. Are we on the table when it comes to that AI charter, for instance, that was launched a couple of days ago in the country? Can we all certainly say that we know where the media will be in 2 years? I'm not sure. Can we create a media and a Kenya Editors Guild that starts to elevate ourselves towards the thinking, towards opening it up for ideas and saying from both seasoned and new editors, let's sit down and talk about it. From both new media, I don't like to call it legacy because it makes me feel old, mainstream media, those in academia, are we creating some of this guild as the think tank that says, these are the areas that, and the challenges to our industry. Some of these are immediate, some of these will be long-term, but this should be the think tank. This should be the place where we congregate, and congregate not just as people, but ideas. I'm not sure I have all the answers, but as a leader, what we do is we use our national convening power and say, let us speak to all of these people and see where this is going. So for me, it's really more about being more consultative and then starting to see what those threats are and how we deal with them, but really gathering ideas and making the guild the center for that.
Thank you. To Yvonne again, a question from Anonymous. What do you think of the meetings and photo opportunities with government entities that have been part of discussions in the KEG group and other spaces? What is the position of both candidates on how the Guild interacts or should interact with government entities such as Kenya Power, police, especially when the said entities are united, linked to scandals?
So first of all, interactions are important These are news sources that we interact with, on a day-to-day basis. Investigative journalists will tell you that some of their sources are not necessarily people who are on the up and up. Those meetings are great, but we need to be very careful about the perception that we create as the Editors Guild, which is the preeminent body that speaks to journalistic ethics and principles and that builds trust with the people. We cannot afford even the slightest hint that we are either hobnobbing with the government of the day, that we are cozy with them, that we are soliciting funds for them, because that could be detrimental to the reputation of the Kenya Editors Guild. And if it's detrimental to that, then it means that the work that we do is no longer believable and we lose public trust. As a journalist, I have been very clear in my stand with government, and I believe we need to continue to establish and enforce a very healthy distance between us in the media and those that we report on and hold them to account. One of the things we need to do is determine the outcome and the purpose of many of these meetings to ensure that we are very clear about that and we're very clear about the outcome. I have spoken truth to power my entire career. I have been consistent with that. I've been consistent that one of the things we need to do is hold them to account and not be in a space where we are constantly being seen with. Now, for what it's worth, they may be possible outcomes to some of these meetings, but we need to just be careful about how often we have them, how quickly we space them out, and to be sure that from those interactions, for instance, with Kenya Power, what is it that we then do thereafter? Because in an era right now, especially when the government is clamping down on freedoms, who are they looking to? They're looking to us. And let me tell you, that term Githeri Media, it is not detrimental to one. It is detrimental to all of us. And so I think these are some of the things we need to start thinking about and ensuring that in all we do, that healthy distance between media, journalists, particularly editors, who are the ones that decide the day-to-day running and the stories that will be published and making decisions on that, and those we hold to account. We must be careful about the perceptions. And when there are one too many and spaced too close together, perception for some people is reality.
Thank you, Zubeida.
Thank you very much. And I love that question. And I'm happy that it came up because it depends on how you want to look at it. These are the same individuals that we host in our newsrooms on a day-to-day, but we don't complain when we host them for interviews in our newsrooms. Again, how I look at it, and I'll speak for me and the council that I led and Kenya Editors Guild that I'm proud of. It's about the bigger picture. I'll use an example of the press club, and this is why press clubs were birthed. It's one of the activities that has been very successful for Kenya Editors Guild. We hold the press club to bring journalists together to ask the tough questions. That's why we invite them to ask the tough questions, because it's not normal. It's not a thing that we wake up to every day where we put all these experts in one room or these decision makers in one room and invite editors, we invite journalists to ask them questions. I'll use an example of EACC because it's the latest press club that we held. And we were discussing resources or asset recovery. And we didn't just look at it as, oh, this is the money that we've recovered and handed over to the government. We looked at it from how does journalism benefit from asset recovered by EACC. And one thing that we agreed on, and we are going to be signing an MOU very soon, is that part of that money goes into training crime reporters and court reporters. And very soon at the School of Government, we're going to have a masterclass where investigative journalists will be trained by experts on forensic reporting, on investigation, on how to report on corruption and so on. I'll go back to another photo session, the meeting that we had with the Ministry of Environment. It is that breakfast meeting that birthed the manual on climate change reporting that is now domiciled at Daystar University. This year, we're going to have a masterclass on climate change reporting. So for me, it's looking at the bigger picture. We've spoken about the police, engaging the police. We cannot run away from it. And this is why today, what we experience today, our journalists being attacked, this is where we call these police officers and hold them to account. The other day, the CS Interior called me and invited me to a meeting where we are supposed to discuss the solutions around safety and security of journalists. How do we handle this issue? How do we find lasting solutions so that we don't keep going back to the same issue? And through that meeting that we had with the police, we've had 2 trainings as Kenya Editors Guild with the police. One we did in Kiganjo and the other one we did at Ngong, to just engage, for them to understand how media works and for us to understand how the police work. And how do we come together? How do we use that opportunity to train each one of us to know where to draw that boundary? I don't think, we don't have to be friends, but these are the opportunities that we use to hold each other to account. We had another breakfast meeting with AATF. And from that, we are now developing a biotech handbook that will be used to train our journalists on biotech and science reporting. So for me, it's about how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at it from a short-sighted point of view, or do you want to look at the broader picture?
May I have a rebuttal, please? Is that allowed?
I hadn't thought about it. A minute. 1 minute rebuttal.
A minute. Perception is important. I will state that again. We hosted a man who, in his previous posting, which was just a few months before, was in charge of a sector where journalists had been harassed and attacked by police during the June-July protests. One of the things we need to do is, it is well that we have trainings, and trainings are fairly important. What has been the outcome of those trainings? If after training and we are seeing and understanding that the police understand how the media work and the media understands how the police works, why do we still have attacks on journalists today?
Can I respond?
What has been?
Okay.
Hang on. So let me finish,
Okay,
and then we can
Yeah.
and then we can come in, and those are important. But again, all of that we're saying, we're losing public trust. We are. And when we talk about a manual and training, and these are very important, and they help to do the work that we do, once we lose that public trust, gaining it back would be difficult. And when you have back-to-back, for me, I think the key issue that we need to restore right now with the Guild and with the industry is public trust. And I think that's something we need to be careful about.
Okay. I'm sorry, I had not thought through about the rebuttal process. So let me allow you a minute, and then we close this conversation.
For me, how I look at it as journalists, yes, as Kenya Editors Guild, we will not dictate how you tell your story. For us is to create that platform for you to hold these leaders to account. We invite them, we put them, ask them the questions. Because for us, remember, our mission is to promote media freedom, credibility, and professionalism. And professionalism comes from asking those questions and telling accurate stories that come from it. When you set the agenda, because that is our biggest thing as media, that's what our biggest mandate, setting agendas. If we are hosting those police officers, and you decide as a newsroom, today our agenda is on police officers, you do 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 stories that hold them to account. You have them there on that platform, ask them the questions. You have the opportunity to do a live event and put them to task and let the public contribute as well. Invite questions from the public. What would you want us to ask them? And we have created the platform for you is to utilize that platform to report accurately on what is being said and to hold those leaders to account. So it's about the bigger picture for me.
Thank you. 2 questions very specifically directed at Yvonne. The KEG constitution requires one to be actively involved in KEG activities at least 5 years before they qualify to vie. How do you see your presidency in that light? And the second question is, why now?
To the second question, why not now? When we put ourselves up for leadership, we are saying, here I am, and I'm presenting myself. Let me preface that with a little something, and I'll try to do that in 2 minutes. I've been having conversations with fellow editors and fellow journalists over the last couple of months, and it's something that I think came up in the debate previously with Vice President Francis Sopenda. The thing about apathy, right? And I will admit here today that the conversations I've had with some of my colleagues who told me outright, they're not sure they see the relevance of the Guild in their lives. And I have wrestled with the question about whether my voice is relevant in the Guild and where that voice comes in. And I've had that, and I've had these moments, and I've wrestled with that. But at this point, I stood on the sidelines wondering whether that voice is meant to be heard and in what way that it will be. And I know for that, I speak for many editors who are in the Guild, those who are potential members of the Guild. But I've come to the conclusion that this Guild alone will not be served without the work of all of those. And I'm throwing my hat in the ring. I'm starting at the top, I know. And I'm glad that I'm seeing the roles of many others who've started at council level and have moved up the ranks. But Rose, you and the incumbent here and many others here, what is the one thing we tell our children? Go for it. Go for it. Start at the top, start in the middle, start at the bottom, start on the sidelines, start wherever you are. Now, one of the things about it is exactly what I was saying earlier about even what happens within the WhatsApp group. There are some topics, you try to start it and and let's be honest, there is apathy. Let's have that conversation. Let's, in fact, preface that with some facts. There are 288 members of the Guild. Only 135 are paid up and therefore eligible to vote. There are more people not voting than those that are, 153. These are the conversations I would like to start to open up at the Guild. And like I said at the beginning, we stand on the shoulders of many of our seniors who have carried the Guild and brought it to where it is. We can no longer continue to have them carry the burden of the Guild on their shoulders. And that is why, under my leadership, I'm hoping we can start to have intergenerational conversations, intergenerational conglomeration of ideas, new versus old, mainstream versus new media. The divisions are many in this Guild, county versus Nairobi, one media house versus another. One of the things we need to do is bring the Guild together and have one conversation about who we are as editors, one conversation that allows everybody to feel part of the whole because they feel included, because they feel they have enough access, equal access to all opportunities that the Guild provides. I am stepping up. It is not the wrong thing to do. And here I am now, and I'm presenting myself. And my hope is that I will be judged based on, one, my reputation, but also based on the ideas that I have. Take a look at the number of contestation of seats. We are the poorer for it that we have many seats that go uncontested. And you know why? Because they're ideas. This right here is the healthiest form of bringing out ideas. The ideas that I'm putting forward, the ideas that she's putting forward are not ideas that we will take to our homes to benefit ourselves. They're for the Guild. And all of the ideas that I put here, should she win, she will take those ideas and I'll be happy to say, look, take them on and let's make this better. And vice versa. But when we have a situation where we say, oh, but wait, you haven't stepped up. I'm stepping up now. Is that wrong? Is that the bad thing to do?
Am I allowed to rebut and clarify issues?
Okay.
Yeah.
I've gone over time?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry, we're not communicating very well here.
Okay. Okay,
We're getting back on track. Huh?
that's fine.
A minute, please. Huh?
We should not look at leadership from a negative point of view. We should look back and ask ourselves, why are we in this situation? We've done newsroom engagements with our colleagues, and I'll speak as someone who has experienced it all. Media is facing very tough times right now, and that's why we've been engaging as the leadership of the Guild to see how to have that turnaround. Because you go to someone, especially the young people, we've recruited so many young people, but somebody tells you, I joined the newsroom the other day, I earned this and this amount of money. How do I subscribed to Kenya Editors Guild, and how do I ensure that every year I'll be able to pay for that, my annual subscription? That has been the biggest challenge, something that has kept us awake every single day. How do we ensure that the people that we recruit, yes, we retain them, and also they are able to pay the money that they need to pay every year? The biggest challenge that we've faced, not that people don't believe in KEG. Right now, the visibility of KEG has gone like extremely high. Everybody believes in KEG, and that's why even things that are outside our mandates, people call us out to respond to them or intervene because people believe in this institution. So the biggest challenge we have right now is just looking at our policies, what they say about the annual subscription. How do we sustain the media, the guild without, losing our members, ensuring that they pay every year. I work at Standard Group, and I'll keep going back to that, where somebody has gotten maybe 50% of their salary. 50% to someone is 10,000 shillings, and we expect them to pay 7,000 shillings. I believe that's where the challenge has been. And that's why even last year, and Vice President, President-elect mentioned earlier, last year for the convention, we paid for some people to attend the convention because we felt they were committed to attending the convention, but they were a bit strained financially. We look at the young people that want to join KEG. Most of them are strained financially. Last year, we came up with the idea of coming up and fundraising a fund that will be used to help the young people that would want to join KEG, our editors who've lost their jobs. How do we support them? We've engaged different people, especially there's one publisher that we engaged this year who said, I would want to employ editors that have lost their jobs. And we put out a call on the group. So it's just about looking for solutions, especially on finances. I feel that that's where the biggest problem is. It's not that editors don't believe in Kenya Editors Guild.
Thank you. I've been remiss. Is there anybody in the room who would like to ask a question? If there is, at the back. I don't know if we have do we have a mic at the back? Any other? There's another one on there.
Okay, my name is Francis Mutegi. Okay, my name is Francis Mutegi. My question is to the two, as pertains matters to do with cases of sexual harassment that have been mentioned in the newsrooms. Have you experienced any? And if you have, how did you handle it? And you have not, how would you handle it? Because those issues have arisen in some newsrooms. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 questions. I think let's take the questions and then you can respond. I'll make a note of them.
Thank you. My question goes to both candidates. The academia is an integral cog in the mission of the Kenya Editors Guild, and yet they still remain underrepresented when you think about those that come from the academy who are members of the guild. Now, if elected president, what strategies will you put in place to ensure that you bring them on board and bring them on board actively, not just as numbers, but as active participants in the affairs of the guild? Thank you.
The last question, gentleman here.
Thank you very much, moderator, and to Yvonne and Zubeida. This has been very enlightening. I think the voters must be very happy because these are 2 pedigree candidates, very eloquent. And I think my question has been asked by Professor Nancy Buga, but I thought I should get the microphone and just tell you kudos for your performance.
Okay, so 2 questions. The first, your handling of sexual harassment in the newsroom, your experiences and handling of sexual harassment in the newsroom and the news environment. And the second one is, how do you plan to involve academia in a more robust way in KEG if elected? Zubeida, I think it was it was her turn to start, right?
It's Madam President to go.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for those questions. They are very timely because these are the conversations that we've been having on our platform. Personally, where I work, been there for the last 18 years, I haven't interacted with anyone who has experienced sexual harassment, but that doesn't mean that they don't face it out there, because we have journalists who've said maybe they've been harassed by news sources and they would want help. This is a conversation that has been alive on our platform, and we picked it up from where we left in December, and Professor Nyabuga, as the chair of strategy committee with the team, at least we are not starting from zero. We have a sexual harassment policy draft as Kenya Editors Guild, which will be engaging members on. We have planned a conversation here at Aga Khan University where we will invite different stakeholders to give their input into that document. So we've been reviewing it. There's a case that many of our members engaged on and said and tasked Kenya Editors Guild to investigate. And it was brought to the attention of the strategy committee and the ethics committee. And they sat down to look at the comments and the feedback that was given by our members about those individuals that were alleged to have committed sexual harassment on their colleagues. And one challenge that we face is that we didn't get evidence. We were looking forward to people coming out and giving us evidence so that we exhaustively investigate those cases. And that's where I appeal to our members. Please, when you have such issues coming up, please reach out to us and give us even the minutest of evidence that you have so that it helps us in investigations. So please, let's hold each other's hands on that issue. And then I reached out to the Complaints Commission at the Media Council and asked them how they can intervene, how they can support us in investigating some of these issues. Because I inquired from them whether it's within their mandate to help us investigate the cases of sexual harassment. It's a conversation that we are still having. And also we proposed to them whether we can come up with a line, toll-free line where people can call and report cases of sexual harassment. So it's a conversation that we're having. And soon when we hold that conversation here at Aga Khan University, I invite us all to come and give our input and ideas on how best we can execute and deal with this issue in our newsrooms.
Okay.
Oh, the one on academia or
academia.
Responsible. Just finish and then it's okay. You can just do
All right.
of them.
Let's just give you 4 minutes then.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
a total.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
don't add 4 minutes. 1 more
So,
minute. to
1
address
or 2
academia.
minutes for the
Just
second
one.
question.
Just one, please.
Yes. I'm proud to say last year we signed another MOU with Daystar University. We have partnered with them in hosting our events. Philip Ochieng Memorial is hosted at Daystar University. As I mentioned earlier, this year they are implementing the manual that we developed on climate change reporting is domiciled at Daystar University. We'll have a masterclass this year. We've extensively recruited membership from the academia. We involve them, especially when we are having our meetings, the press club. We appeal to them to give us journalists from journalism class to come and attend the class, the events, get the experience, learn and interact with our editors to learn on the job so that they publish. I said earlier that I used to report when I was in school. So we want to give them that opportunity to mentor them, to be able to experience journalism while they are still in school so that when they exit the institutions, they don't find themselves, without knowledge of where they should start. So we've been engaging them on research as well on different issues. We've engaged them, even giving the inside take during our events.
Okay.
We want to hear from them, from their perspective. Even the manual they helped us in editing. So they play a huge role in everything that we do, and we appreciate them.
Thank you. Yvonne,
Thank you. Sexual
4
harassment.
minutes total.
Sexual harassment in the public, in the media, in the newsroom is something shameful and has no place in any workplace and in any society. I would like to say that. With respect to whether we are able to investigate some of these cases, I'm not sure we have the capacity or perhaps even the mandate to do that. And that is why issues of evidence might end up being difficult. For me, I think the one thing that I would propose for we can create that draft, like you're saying, Madam President, and move that further along. But I think we need to condemn it in any shape or form or any space. And we need to speak out and be very clear that there is no place for that amongst editors, particularly amongst those within the guild. But one of the things we can start to do is focus on education, developing the relationship even with the judiciary to enable us perhaps find a way of promoting both awareness and ensuring swiftness of justice for these cases, where we're able to enable safe spaces. I know we've talked about evidence, getting that would be difficult, and it is, because many of those who feel that they've been harassed will be difficult to give evidence. But for me, I think it would be to ensure that we have swiftness of justice, because this is a crime. Beyond the matter of ethics, this is criminal. And it would be one of the things to help facilitate that process with the investigative authorities and with members of the judiciary. As regarding academia, one of the things I think I talked about earlier, perhaps is having members of academia help us with this matter of peer review. I think we need to be robust and have conversations about the work that we do, and to do it without emotion. Now, it's difficult because we are tied to our work. We're very attached to the pieces of work that we produce, we publish, and we broadcast. But why not have maybe quarterly, where we say we're going to review interviews that are done on television, and be rather specific. And one of the ways we can do is get members of academia to do some sort of analysis of these stories. So take a look at their reception, with members of the public. How do they, perform, for instance, on social media platforms and even on the mainstream platforms? And then to convene us into having an open and honest discussion that says, where are we? How are we reporting? What do our interviews on television look like? The issues that we're talking about here, the people who run the radio station shows in the morning. So we talk about it, but do we really have a moment where we sit down and critique ourselves and critique each other? I believe members of the academia would be very important to do that. And I believe it's also important to open up and make that as varied as possible. The other thing we can do really is mentorship. The Aga Khan University and many others, the Multimedia University, Daystar University, where we shall be on Saturday. There's many who are there, but how can we make this a more structured mentorship? By the way, even for those who would seem seasoned and those who are younger, but that is something that I think should be led by our institutions. And then also starting to design some more courses. That is already happening, but I think more of that needs to be done, to design courses that are very specific towards all of these challenges that we are facing, these frontier issues that we are grappling with, and to see how those we will transit into what that future looks like at this time.
Thank you.
Can I get 30 seconds to say something? Or even
And
less?
we're really going to have to get back on track.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions coming in.
Okay.
We're kind of losing focus. And I just really have to say that this isn't how we envisaged the evening. We were going to have structured questions so that everybody gets a chance to answer the same question and we can kind of evaluate. So those online questions, we've received them here. We may not have to get, we will not have time to get to all of the questions. It's a very popular conversation, but I think we need to go back to the format that we had before. So let's get to your thinking about the sector and what needs to be done. A key question that we've come back to again and again is the sustainability of media. Can we hear in 2 minutes your thoughts on what do you think? Do you have ideas about modeling the media models that might work? And how do we go about arriving at sustainable model? Of course, this is a nebulous question, so we're just asking for your opinion on this.
Is
yeah,
that me?
Yvonne,
Okay,
sorry.
all right, okay, no problem. When we talk about media sustainability, and I think we've already talked about the establishment of that media fund, for me, I think it's just to accelerate with where we're going with that, because I think the big elephant in the room is how to fund this media fund. We've heard about the work with the EACC and some of the money that is coming in, and some of those funds that are coming in from the recovery assets. I think those should go to not just training, but to funding media operations and telling stories. After all, it is many of the investigative stories that are told by the media that expose graft and corruption in the country. So how about having something that is more of a standing percentage from the recovery of assets and saying it won't just go to funding, but 5% of those funds that are recovered or 10% of it will go to the media and will go to directly funding the operations, investigative journalism, and that, as we all know in this room, costs quite a bit of money. So those are some of the things. When it comes to the issue of sustainability of that fund, I think one of the things we need to do is accelerate, because like I said, even in my opening statement, a lot has been done by the current leadership. Now, can we just push it from, where it is stuck to say, okay, so let's now start to seek ways. Interesting models. I've seen Sierra Leone actually launched a public interest media fund, and they actually launched it in March this year. And that was interesting in terms of, so those are some of the models I think we would seek to take a look at and see how those have worked. So first of all, it's accelerating that. It's the other issue of perhaps lobbying with our parliamentarians with respect to big tech. And the thing is, we have seen it being done before. So this is something, these are quick wins and these are low-hanging fruits from areas that we've seen. New Zealand, Australia now have laws that are compelling big tech because of all the content that they take from media and commercially benefit from that. So how do we do that? The other thing I think I'd like to talk about as well is sustainability of the Guild. This is the issue we've been talking about. Now, there have been solutions we've heard about, perhaps on an ad hoc basis or one-on-one, where we say there are certain people who are unable to pay their membership fees. Look, we're dealing in an environment where media incomes are threatened. They're not as high as they should be. People are being retrenched. In fact, we know there's a retrenchment cycle from one of the media houses that is coming soon. Yes, we have done some good work with the subscriptions, but we need to go beyond subscriptions, because the sustainability of the Guild is also important for the sustainability of the media. 20,000 was what it used to cost to go to the annual convention. It's now 30,000. If we think the 7,000 every year for member subscription is difficult, imagine the annual convention. What more can we do in terms of partnerships that then generally subsidizes this cost, so that we're not saying that we're doing it on a one-on-one and need basis? One of the things that I think we need to start doing with the Guild is elevating ourselves so that we move more from the operational level to the strategic and visionary point. So we should start saying, how do we make our annual conventions perhaps more affordable and accessible to all? We have wonderful and powerful convening power. We're a national body. We can find more partners that are able to work with us into the work that we do, so that we say it's not a need basis. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4 people, but we're saying that we're making this subsidized for everybody, that we're saying that to fund our operations, we need to find like-minded partners, even for the Guild, to the extent that we are not solely dependent or wholly dependent, or to a large extent dependent on subscriptions. There's been some great work that has been done. I acknowledge that. We've heard about the Reserve Fund and the work that has been done there, but certainly more needs to be done with all of these partners that we meet. And maybe that's where we need to start thinking strategically about the press clubs and the people that we meet. How can we make some of those more beneficial towards the work of the Guild?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Timekeeper.
But I should also be given
As long as I
extra
don't
time.
let the bell ring.
I should be given more
Yes.
time to respond as well. Yeah.
Please.
So from the sector point of view, is keep pushing and finding solutions on media sustainability. We've been engaging on who contributes to that fund, and I'm sure very soon we are going to finalize it on it and establish the fund. I mentioned earlier, so I'll go quickly on the other points on how to sustain our newsrooms and the sector as a whole through storytelling, because that's what appeals to advertisers. They invest where they see value. You have a story, you're telling a story that attracts 2 million, 3 million, 5 million viewers at a go, they will invest in that. So we need to go back to the journalism that we used to engage in the past, telling stories that appeal to the investors as well through partnerships. And I'll get back to that in a minute. And also the use of emerging tech as a revenue generating model, instead of just relying entirely on advertising, because we feel at the moment it's not working. So how else do we use, especially the emerging tech, to generate revenue? And yes, and the big tech has been a big conversation that we've been engaging in, and I hope soon we are able to find a middle ground on unfair compensation from the big tech. How do we engage the government to help us finding solutions around big tech? And let me go back to the sustainability of Kenya Editors Guild. And I'm happy that my colleague and friend has spoken about partnerships, because that, we can say without a doubt, has contributed to the success of KEG. And briefly, and quickly, let me take us back to the audit report of 2024. Grants income have grown by 58%, from 18.7 million to 29 million. Surplus for Kenya Editors Guild, 2023, we had a deficit. This year, we've seen surplus of 12.7 million. Overall income has grown by 33%. Expenses have reduced by 42%. Convention that we've spoken about here, the costs have been cut down by 18%. And the reserve fund has grown by 240%, from 2.5 million when we came in 2023 to 8.5 million currently. So we are not just relying on subscription to sustain Kenya Editors Guild. Partnerships have made the success that we are proud of today.
Okay, I think we're in our final stage. Timekeeper, are we? Yeah. I want to wrap just by going back to the vision. Share your vision again and the first actions that you see yourself taking if you're elected. Let's say your 2 priority actions that you would take if elected. Where were we? It was
I did the last.
Okay,
yes,
no problem. One thing that, going back to the numbers that I've shared right now, where I want to see KEG in the next 2 years, I want Kenya Editors Guild, and I would love Kenya Editors Guild to own its own space. Because looking at the money that we pay on rent every month, it's something that we can pay for a mortgage. And if we owned our own space where we can even have our meetings, we will cut down on cost even further. Because to hold a meeting in a hotel, it costs us more than 200,000 every engagement that we have in a hotel. So if we own our own space, I'm sure that we are going to cut costs. We will create space for our editors who come and engage, because there, I believe soon, I trust God, we are going to have an office where our colleagues can come and work comfortably at. So that is one priority that I'm looking at when I come back to office. And I'm sure by the time we leave in 2027, we are going to have our own space. Another thing that will help us in cost cutting in our office is getting a car for the secretariat, because I look at every day, they have to take this report here, they have to take these documents here, movement from here and there, transporting our equipment and banners from one place to another. It costs us a lot when we use Uber or taxis. So if we can get our own car as KEG, I believe that we're going to cut down on cost. Yes, that, and also keep promoting professionalism, keep engaging partners in training our journalists to grow our industry. So those are key, and fighting for the welfare of our journalists, safety and security of our journalists. That is a conversation that I'm not going to get tired of. We'll keep pushing it until we get things right.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. One of the things I think that is important, like I said at the start, is to be sure about who the guild is, who we are, and who we are not. And I think we need to continue to stamp our authority, to be bold, to be fearless, and to create one that is the moral compass for the industry. And not just the moral compass for the industry, but the moral compass for the country. We are living in, I dare say, not unprecedented times, because many of us who have been here, we have seen this before. And it worries us when we see us potentially going back to where we have been. So we need a guild that is bold, that is fearless, and that continues to stake a claim in the country's democratic process, and also doing that by upholding standards amongst our peers. I would like to see a guild that continues to grow to be more vibrant, and that one that allows for space for all editors. There is even those who are in the blogging space, and many of them do not necessarily feel a part. This guild has to be a guild for all of us. And it has to be a guild that enables the bringing together of ideas from as many people as possible. The other thing that I think we need to start doing is, creating this to be a think tank and moving ourselves up towards starting to think about the issues that affect our industry, what our industry will look like in the next 2 to 5 years, and not just thinking about it, but starting to create a vision and a path. When we talk about making this one that feels inclusive for all, I think it is important that we acknowledge, first of all, that we are not where we need to be when it comes to unity of the guild. We have a long way to go, and I think we need to make sure we're building those bridges and having these conversations that enable everyone to be a part of. And a guild that means a lot to more people and that is useful to everybody. Safety protocols in newsrooms, pushing for matters of insurance. We know there's many journalists who work in spaces in which they don't have proper health insurance. Mental health support is a big issue. What are we doing as the Guild to start to sensitize on these issues and move our editors in their spaces, running regular safety workshops, especially around high-risk assignments. But let me end by saying this. We should be concerned with who we are, what we stand for, and what the public sees as our work. That involves good quality of journalism, but that also involves upholding integrity, accountability, and continuing to speak truth to power. As the only media, as the only profession that is mentioned in our constitution, I think the Guild needs to be seen to be as sober as a judge, leading with trust, working with other like-minded organizations. We need to be the professional organization that sets the pace for others like Law Society of Kenya, those that lead engineers, accountants, architects. We need to place ourselves there and to continue to do that. The more we do that, the more we build public trust, and the more we do build public trust is the more we become a more credible media, one that is able to attract all of the funding that we're looking for in terms of making us more sustainable. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Yvonne. I hear online, but they have like a barrage of questions for you. So let's take a few as we wind up. I can ask, let me start. Okay. Looking at the legal regime that Zubeida, you mentioned, they're asking, can you enumerate and mention some of the 21 laws that need review? And then speak to editorial independence. What role should Kenya Editors Guild play to ensure media houses and editors do not cede ground due to commercial and ownership interference? Sorry.
Let me get that again.
And that is from Roslyn Obala.
What did she ask?
This is the question I'm asking. The first, can you mention some of the laws that need to be reviewed? And then with regard to editorial independence, what role should KEG play to ensure that editors do not cede ground to commercial and political and ownership interests?
It's just doing our job and doing it right. And I mentioned earlier that we need to have internal mechanisms that draw that balance, create that balance. So that I host, when I joined, before KTN News died, I used to host about 5 shows. And sometimes someone would come from commercial and tell me, so-and-so has bought your show today. But what did I do as an editor and a news anchor? I would dictate how that content would be. Somebody will not come and tell me, ask this question and that question, because at the end of the day, I ask myself, so what? You're having that conversation. What does it mean to that viewer who is watching you today? How does it impact them? Yes, somebody has come to speak about the projects that they're doing. I bring them down to Mwananchi. What does Mwananchi say about it? So it's about how the kind of policies that we put in place, the mechanisms, and also speaking to the editorial department, having that conversation and coming to a solution. Like when you're going to sell this kind of content, please make sure that it serves the public. Make sure that it serves our audiences, because we don't want to have a show where people are just coming to sell their agenda and taking it away from what we do on a day-to-day, the service that we've committed to have for the people, So at the end of the day, it's just having that balance, creating that balance to ensure that commercials don't take over our editorial content. Because we've seen on so many days, yes, we want to sustain our newsrooms, we want money, but at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what will bring back the people? Oh, the other question, yes, I spoke about the KBC Act. That should be the top priority. There are laws that have been put in place that don't protect the journalists when they tell these stories. When a journalist finds themselves in trouble, and then you go for that journalist, punishing that journalist, that's the kind of law that we need to get rid of. And then the Kika Act, we've been looking at it, and we hope that we're going to amend certain laws in it that doesn't favor our journalists, And so I'm brushing because I'm looking at both of you looking at me. Yeah, so those are some of the laws that should be a priority, yes. Safeguarding the safety of our journalists.
Okay, so the sexual harassment responses have elicited a bit of a backlash.
Yeah.
There's a statement that, are you aware, you seem to be living in another world? Are you aware that sexual harassment in Kenya stands at over 50%? And things of sexual harassment are swept under the carpet because we have normalized it. That is Jane Godia. And I think we had a report from One IFRA that really elucidated that. It indicated that 1 in every 2 women in media in Kenya has experienced sexual harassment. I don't know if you would like to add anything to that.
Yes, like I said, sexual harassment is an issue because it is a societal problem, and it is something that is faced in media houses as well. And one of the things that I talked about was creating safe spaces, because when we say that evidence is hard to gather, typically cases like these are difficult to investigate, difficult to find evidence, and always, in almost all cases, sexual harassment in the newsroom, just like in any other workplace or corporate sector, is done by people in power. And therefore, having victims of sexual harassment come and speak out will be difficult. And that is why, in response to what was said about evidence being difficult and urging people to come through, it's not enough to just say, if you feel like you've been sexually harassed, please speak up. The nature of these cases is that there are issues of power play and exerting power over those that you feel you have power over. And like I said, one of the things that we need to do is work very closely with the judiciary and with the investigating authorities to ensure that there's swiftness of justice. I am not sure that we can say we have the capacity to be the ones that conduct these investigations. But one of the things we need to do is to be very clear that this will not be allowed in our newsrooms. It is shameful, it is unacceptable, and it is something that we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard in the media.
Okay. In all fairness to both of you, I think I've tried to restrain.
With respect to the laws, can I speak to that? Although, or was the question for both?
The question was for,
okay, fine.
for her.
Okay.
So Sexual harassment, I think I recently tried to write an article on that, and the evidence just does not come
Yeah,
out.
it's
It just
difficult.
does not come
Yeah.
out.
I think it's just about creating a safe
Yeah,
space for
yeah.
everyone. When you create a safe space, the evidence will come.
So, okay, for both of you, what revenue streams will you create if you for KEG to ensure its sustainability? I think you've touched on it a bit
so
as
many
you've
times, yeah.
spoken.
Do we want
but-
to go back to it? Because we've spoken extensively.
Yeah,
extensively
okay.
But
All right.
maybe
So-
we can try and just get others that we haven't really addressed.
What is that?
As you look at about around for it. The other act that I forgot to mention because my mind froze when I was being rushed for time is the MCK Act to avoid the conflicts between MCK and CA over who is in control of content. You know, that is one other issue that we've been struggling with, and we hope we'll find a solution to.
Okay.
Maybe I'll speak to the laws. I
Okay.
think some of the ones which have retrogressive provisions include the Penal Code, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, the Official Secrets Act, the Kicker Act, like I think has been mentioned here. The Defamation Act is something that needs to be taken a look at. The National Cohesions Integration Act, Prevention of Terrorism Act, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation Act, the Kenya Film and Stage Plays Act, CAP 222, the Public Archives and Documentation Act, CAP 19.
Okay. So from Zainab Wandati, she says there's a perception among non-members that the Guild is an elitist club where many pay membership fees, but only a few benefit. And for this reason, they refuse to join the Guild. I'd like to know how Zubeda has handled this and if Yvonne has a plan to change this perception. Start with.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zainab. What we've done as Kenya Editors Guild is to ensure that when these opportunities come, is to ensure that they are all, it's open for everyone. It's all inclusive. We post the calls on the group and we send the calls to the emails. So what I would want to appeal to my colleagues at Kenya Editors Guild, when these calls are made, please apply. Because I'll use the example because some of our colleagues have spoken to it. Trips to China, the calls were put there. And when you go back to the Secretariat to look at the number of people that have shown interest, you'll find only 1 person, 2 people. The development of biotech handbook, we put out a call, only 1 person responded. You know, so it's just enticing people and encouraging them to appeal or to show their interest when that call is made. And we've made things easier now for everybody. You don't have to call Rosalia, you don't have to call Annie for anything. We've come up with a portal that will offer services, all services to our members. So if you need, there are job opportunities, if there are opportunities at the Kenya Editors Guild, if you want to download your certificate, if you want to send a message or, you know, anything you want, we are going to use it even to vote, you know. So because we've embraced technology, that portal will give you an opportunity to get all the information you need, all the policies that we have, you know, give input on how to improve KEG and upcoming activities, already done activities, the yearly calendar and so on. So we've made work easier for everybody because sometimes people say they don't see the calls. And I think it's because of the engagements that we have on our group. So please, when these calls are made, right, be aggressive, love you. That's what I say at the end of the day. There's an opportunity for everyone at KEG, but love you. Ask yourself, what is your area of expertise? Maybe you have expertise in AI or technology reporting. Come up with an activity that we are going to fundraise for and push for as Kenya Editors Guild. Right now, we're having a conversation on activities we can do around mental health. If it's your area of interest, please come up with those ideas and we're going to implement them. Love you, be aggressive, because some of these things are self-driven. Be aggressive and we are going to back you up. We are going to support you to the last minute. Opportunities are there for everyone, and that's why we post them on the group.
Okay. Yvonne?
Beyond asking members to do that, because that is a call I have seen on the group from time to time, where we have leadership urging the members to step up and take advantage of these opportunities. Love you, absolutely. But maybe we need to start by doing 2 things. One is to truly acknowledge that this is a challenge. And once we can start to do that, maybe we can stop to ask ourselves, why many of these calls are not heeded. Why aren't they interested? Because these are journalists in their own right. And I think we need to start being reflective and perhaps start to be honest with ourselves about where we are with respect to membership. For me, I think it is to start to listen to the members. Listen to the ones who say, I don't feel like the guild is for me. Can we sit with them and ask them why they feel that way? Can we get an understanding of where this apathy is coming from? Because like Madam President has said, it is real, and she attests to that, that you would put out a call, maybe one person, maybe none will respond. Why? And this is one of the things that I promise to do, which is one, be consultative and be listening, and to understand what the issues are and to start to address them. Could it be that maybe some of these courses they don't feel are relevant? Can we go back to them and say, what do you want to see? What do you think will be beneficial to you in terms of personal career development and where the industry is going? For me, I think it would be to, one, acknowledge that we have a challenge, and then two, sit down and hear back from members rather than say, we've put out these calls, we have these courses, because there is something that is happening there. And I think we need to listen and understand and seek understanding before we move forward with this issue. And that's one of the things that I promise to do.
And please,
Okay.
because my name has been mentioned, I need to respond
Okay.
in 30 seconds.
Yes.
We have been doing that. If you've been following, we have been doing newsroom engagements. And that's why we took the conversation to the ground, to listen to the people, to engage them and ask them, how can we serve you better?
But yet,
Can I finish what
and
I'm
others
saying,
are
please?
still not happy. So there must be
Okay.
something we must change.
The conversation started in
It's not-
January. We are yet to sample to see whether it's working or not.
Okay.
So we are still engaging the people on the ground, and that's how we are recruiting even the young people, listening to them, telling them about what KEG is, because we got to understand that many people, especially the new one, don't know what KEG is and what is in it for them. That's why we took the conversations to the ground, to the people, to engage them, to listen to them, and better KEG for the future.
Okay, we're finishing with one last question. The brown envelopes. The media has gained a reputation. It used to be just in the, in the rural areas, but now the reputation is that even in the media houses, even among editors, the brown envelope rules, and you just pay for what you want. What you want to air, what you want published. What will you do to address both the practice and the perception that the media is basically corrupt? Media in Kenya is corrupt, and we hear a lot of politicians just actually amplifying that message, Githeri Media, Sijui, all these names that they throw. Much as we say sometimes it is part of the disinformation, there is a very real, and I think John Allen Namu shared a video actually the other day
Yes.
of
I saw that.
journalists actually fighting for
I saw that.
a handout. So what will you do to end this practice? Who is going?
Who's it?
I'll start with Yvonne.
All right. So in terms of practice, this is something that, and listen, we can remunerate as well as we want to, but this is not an issue of remuneration. This is clearly a vice that is there. It needs to be stamped out. It needs to be completely rooted out of what we are. I think one of the ways that we do that is to start to ensure that as the Guild, we are speaking out against it. We need to have an internal mechanism where we even speak to our members and say, there's been some of these issues. And some of those things include that peer review mechanism, where we can even start to say, but, we heard that this story is, we hear that all the time, that this interview was paid for. These interviews, these sets of interviews are usually influenced. So let's start to be more robust with our internal criticism and our internal critique, rather, of where we are, our content, and doing that in a very honest space, because we aren't perhaps as honest with ourselves as we need to be. So those are some of the things that would help stamp out the practice when we know that even internally, the work that we do would be subject to our own internal scrutiny. And I think that is something that needs to happen in terms of practice with respect to editors, and perhaps even something within the Editors Guild, because we are the editors who are working in the newsrooms and who are accused of the same. So we bring that reputation to the Editors Guild as well. With respect to perception, I will say this because I think I said it before. We as the Guild should really be concerned with the perception that we might create when we entertain public and key actors on certain platforms. We must be keen about who we entertain, the timing of it, and the message. We need to be able to elevate ourselves and be the fourth estate and the fourth arm of government that says this is not something that will be entertained within our spaces. And I do believe the issue of perception is great because it is also difficult to prove that money changed hands. But there is certain perceptions and there are certain things that are seen. And let me tell you, perception can hurt you even more than any fact that can be proven, for instance, in a court of law. So one of the things that I think, and I've said this and I know I will say it again, we need to be the moral compass of the industry and we need to elevate that. And I think also the work that we do, the consistency of our work and our perception and our own reputational agenda is there. And this needs to be something that is visionary. Perhaps we can even start to say, yes, that we will not entertain so-and-so and so-and-so until we start to get guarantees, for instance, of safety for our journalists, of access to information and the right to that. But this is something that we need to stand tall and be very clear and categorical about.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll pick it from where she left. And the decision to host anyone at Kenya Editors Guild is not made by the council. It's not made by the president. That's why we have committees that are involved in planning for activities for members. We have the ethics committee that scrutinizes everybody that we engage with, including partners. And whenever we get their approval, that's when we proceed to engage those partners. So we don't just wake up in the morning and decide to engage someone. They will come to me, they will come to the CEO, write an email with details, who they are, why we should engage them. And then we escalate that to the planning committee, to the ethics committee that makes the final decision on who we host at KEG. And again, is she trying to allege that there's money exchanging hands at Kenya Editors Guild? I think not.
I have not made such allegations.
We stand for integrity. That's what guides us every day. We are guided by transparency. That's why every coin that comes to Editors Guild, we make that information available to members. Anytime you walk in Kenya Editors Guild, you'll find a list of donors that came in, how much they contributed, and how much that money is used. On the issue of money exchanging hands, the brown envelope. What we have done as Kenya Editors Guild, yes, a couple of months ago or the last year, we didn't have one, but we use the town hall to sensitize the public about media. Who is a journalist? Especially in today's world. Everybody now, so long as you can afford a nice camera, so long as you can come up with a microphone, go to those dingy places there and come up with a microphone. Everybody thinks that you're a journalist. So we use the town halls to sensitize the public about who journalist is. And we've done it in collaboration with MCK because we show them that accreditation card. We tell them this is how the accreditation card looks like. So when somebody approaches you and tells you that they are journalists, please make sure that you look at this and look at that before you give them any money. Because during these town halls, what came out is that many people claim that somebody came here, they were wearing a press jacket, and they claim that they are from this and that media, but we didn't see our story. We asked, did you look at the accreditation card? Are they really accredited? And that's why in our newsrooms, at the end of every program, there are numbers there where we appeal to the public that if you notice anything ill about our journalists, or if we've broadcasted anything that you don't like, please give us our feedback. Give us your feedback and we are going to action on it. Maybe that's where we need to go big, keep encouraging the public to give feedback on these issues, and are going to tackle it, because this is something that we cannot entertain. where somebody goes out and asks for money. We keep telling the public that you shouldn't pay for news. We don't pay for news unless it's an advertisement. So please don't give anybody money. And whenever anybody asks for money, report them through this number and so on. And we have the Complaints Commission that handles such cases. So we just need to keep encouraging the public and sensitizing the public about the channels that are there whenever they want to handle any matter, any
Okay.
issue.
For the record,
Our time
For the
is up.
record, one sentence, I have not made any allegation of any money changing hands. What
Okay.
I've simply talked about is a perception when we are seen on a national platform with some actors with whom we're expected to hold to account. But there has been no allegation that has been made on my part.
Thank you.
I
Thank
completely
you.
respect the integrity of the president and all others who are in the council and who have run the guild very well so far.
And does
I
it mean
want
that we
to-
cannot even host them on our channels?
No, I want to
That's a
wrap up.
different space, madam.
I must wrap up this conversation. I'm
yeah.
going to give each of you 1 minute to say, why should they vote for you? 1 minute. Why should you be voted for on Saturday? I forget where we were, Yvonne.
No, I think it was there because we started here.
All right.
I would look at you, I'll face you, and what I'm confident in is that I've delivered. The promises I made during the campaigns in 2023, I have delivered. And my work speaks for itself. Not just me, but the council, the entire council. We've worked hand in hand. We've delivered. Now we have a manual. We are speaking about the portal. Then the finances have grown at Kenya Editors Guild. We've launched a manual. We've held 2 conventions, fully paid up. We don't owe anyone. All the monies that we owed people in 2022 were fully paid up. We got a landmark ruling just the other day on advertising, and right now we have a draft policy on advertising for the government, advertising from the government. We made an appeal on payment of pending bills, and we've seen newsrooms receiving their money. So my track record speaks for itself. As the leader for the last 2 years, I'm so proud of where we are. Our partnerships have grown and so on.
Thank you.
The list is endless. We've delivered.
Thank you.
So please, I appeal
Thank
to you on Saturday.
Thank you.
Kura kwa Zubeida.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Congratulations to the work that has been done by the current leadership and all of those who have come before. I think we need to look at the Guild in terms of stacking up and continuing to consolidate the gains and increase upon that. Good ideas can also be made better. Better ideas can also be made best. And what we need to do is to continue to thrive towards being the professional association that is above reproach in many aspects, but that guides us and gives us a moral compass in the direction that we're going in the challenging times that we lead. I want to appeal to everybody to look at my candidature as one of creating a broader coalition of editors. One where we stop having 2, 3, 4 separate conversations between those who are seasoned, those who have come before us, those who are new, and those who are in the middle. We need to be very careful and think about the youth vote and the youth participation in that. From what we've seen in the country, that is something that will come up here.
Thank
I
you
am
very
passionate.
much.
One sentence.
One sentence.
I am passionate about and have been consistent about leading with heart, leading with values, leading with integrity. Everybody knows that I'm passionate about that work and speaking truth to power and elevating us to having conversations that take us into the next frontier. So I humbly ask for this vote. And with this, I also have a call to other editors to come on board. Let's not sit on the sidelines.
Thank you.
Let's join in.
Thank you very much. Before I sign off and hand over to Professor Nyabuga, sincere apologies to those online. There are 1,000 questions waiting for you to answer. We really just don't have the time, and I really have to implore you, it was not our intention actually to open up the conversation. We had a set list of questions, and we were going to give you the equal time to answer the same question so that there was balance. but we have appreciated the input. I think it has added another dynamic and has given a very robustness to the conversation we've had. I want to appreciate both of you for really elucidating these issues. We've touched on so many things, from media freedom to financial sustainability, identity of KEG, the diversity, sustainability, and the both financial and operations, legislative review, and where necessary, reform. We've looked at internal strengthening of media houses, internal strengthening of KEG, safety and security, mental health. It's really a really wide array of issues that KEG is called to handle. I think you've elucidated your intentions very clearly, and I think it's time to hand over to the voters, wishing you very well on Saturday, both of you. Thank you for really informing us well tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Zubeida.
very much.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Yes. Not just looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the photo?
Yeah.
And I remind you, much as we have put them on the floor today, these guys have put the president on the floor before. The president of the country. Yes.
Yes, we have friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely, we are colleagues. I will call her tomorrow when I need a story and I don't have to. It's all about the tree. Yes. We have the membership. The one that goes to the. Okay, the one that goes to the front.
Okay, and with that, I hand over to George, Professor Nyabuga.
Thank you very much. This has been very, very, very wonderful. And thanks to the brilliant team at AKU. I think they've done a very wonderful job. And perhaps I'll ask the team to stand up so that we can acknowledge them all the way from Marion, Sunday, who else? Of course, the Dean, Dan, Hamed, Liz, Paul, who else? Simon, Wesley, who else is? Yes, if you stand, please, we can acknowledge them. We received what you saw earlier today at about 5 p.m. and the team was able to design that background within about 10 minutes. The team started to put this together at about 5 p.m. and you can, yes, I think you're pretty, not just looking pretty, you're pretty. Yes. Thank you very much. And yeah, so this wonderful facility, of course, has been made possible by the Dean herself. She works very hard because this costs a bit of money, as you can imagine. So the university has invested in this because we believe in KEG and we believe in the media and we believe in journalism and we believe that all of us are actually making a huge contribution to making this country better, to ensuring that we're able to train journalists and media people that, uphold integrity, people that possess the skills and the knowledge to be able to practice very, very good journalism, to be professionals, and to ensure, of course, ultimately that KEG is us, KEG belongs to us, and that KEG will continue to serve the journalism and media community. So thank you very much to, of course, the Kenya Editors Guild itself. Thanks very much to Rose Lucalo. Rose has been a friend of the Editors Guilds and a friend of the school for many, many years. And she's really, really committed to the cause. And she's always turned up whenever it is that we need this kind of service. So thank you very much, Rose, for what you've done tonight. Sunday has been a very wonderful, she is always, organizing everything out here. As you can imagine, all the teas, all the security is Sunday is the person that organizes that. And you can imagine when you are getting into the gate, you asked for your ID and all that, but she arranges all that. She sends your names to the gate well before, and she knows everybody around here. So because of the respect that she has in the school, people are able to listen to her and do whatever it is that you know. So thank you very much, Sandy, for the service that you have offered tonight. I think we're gonna see you all on Saturday. And I'm hoping that Saturday, I think the meeting starts at 9, exactly 9 a.m. I hope that everybody turns up on time at Daystar, and the voting should be done by lunchtime. So we will be having a few drinks to celebrate the leadership at Daystar. Yes, at Daystar. Anyway, I didn't say what kind of drink it is, but nonetheless, thank you very much. I think it's a bit late, but I think this has been wonderful, isn't it? It's been live streamed on both Zoom, NTV, YouTube channel. We had a YouTube channel, KEG YouTube channel, and lots of people are watching. I've read Irungu Houghton saying he's watching from the US. So lots of people are interested in what is going on at the Kenya Editors Guild. And long live the Kenya Editors Guild, long live GSMC, and long live the partnership that we've developed. Thank you. And there's a photo opportunity, apparently, if everybody comes to the front. We have photographers here, so please come to the front.